Hi, I'm Stephanie Shelton, and the Prayercast today is coming as I've thought very carefully about what it meant to be a white person, a white woman in this America, where George Floyd was killed, where Christian Cooper was put in danger in Central Park. And so I wasn't content to not say anything because I feel like white silence is definitely a tool of white supremacy. And so I think that I write my ideas better than I say them sometimes. And so I'm going to share something with you that I shared on social media this morning. White people, I'm talking to us. I want to start by being very, very clear, given how eager we are to pull words and phrases out of context to assign blame everywhere but ourselves. In his 1964 Nobel Prize acceptance speech, Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Hate multiplies hate, violence multiplies violence, and toughness multiplies toughness in a descending spiral of destruction." But for those white people who invoke Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks to suggest that the revolution happening in Minneapolis and across the US is not a form of protest, remember that Martin Luther King Jr. also said 4 years later in 1968, "A riot is the language of the unheard," in his essay, The Other America. I want to be clear and say, I don't think that these riots are the solution or even a solution, but I also don't think that they're the problem, especially not for white America specifically. I do think that they are an inevitable response to the unchecked years of murder, of threatening, of silence, of crushing. This nation, as we know it, was founded on civil unrest and disobedience because individuals were exhausted and enraged by enforced powerlessness. It was also founded on racism, though. Rather than myopically focusing on this one section of a whole tapestry and choking on fake outrage, examine the whole of the woven fabric of US history and contemporary society. These riots do not exist in isolation, and to point to them without a deeper and more contextualized understanding of the ways that white supremacy sparked them is the problem. You are the problem. If you think that the protesters in Minneapolis should have just peacefully protested and that would have been okay, then know that they did. They got assaulted with rubber bullets and tear gas. Others did in other places now and earlier. They were also attacked, arrested, demonized, dismissed, sometimes killed. Pulitzer Prize winner Toni Morrison, when she was asked about the LA riots, said in an interview that resonates here, "People keep saying, oh, the riots. What struck me most about those who rioted was how long they waited. The restraint, not the spontaneity, the restraint. They waited for justice for almost a year, and it didn't come. No one talks about that. If you forget the years of waiting, the many years of people waiting, you are the problem. If you've decided that buildings, which will unquestionably be replaced through insurance claims, are more worthy of notice and outrage than watching a white man crush a black man's throat in 2020, then you are the problem. If you've decided that Amy Cooper's dog abuse, and anyone who knows me at all knows that I love my dog, but if you've decided that her dog abuse in Central Park was more outrageous than her saying to Christian Cooper, "I'm going to tell them that there's an African-American man threatening my life," then you are the problem. If you've equated these riots with terrorism and refer to these people as thugs, like the president, but refer to the individuals who openly brandished AK-47s because they couldn't get haircuts and were asked to wear masks as patriots, then you are the problem. If you look at predominantly white or whitewashed historical moments like the Boston Tea Party, the French Revolution, the Stonewall riots, and celebrate those as patriotism, but then frame these moments in Minneapolis as unfounded violence, then you are the problem. If you are okay with the individual who sits in the US Oval Office threatening violence in response to the frustration and unrest in Minneapolis, and like him, we're similarly accepting of the good people on both sides in Charlottesville, Virginia, when a white supremacist intentionally drove a car into a crowd of peaceful protesters and killed a woman, then you are the problem. If you scream, "They broke the law," because they busted up a Target, but then don't scream even louder when you watch video footage of white authority figures threatening and killing black men, women, and children, then you are the problem. If you stand aghast at the fires and shattered glass in Minneapolis, but every time there's another white man who's a serial killer or a serial shooter, you want to remind others of that individual's rough home life, his undiagnosed mental health needs, and the ways that the system failed him, then you are the problem. And I want to be clear, our system does fail people in meeting all basic needs, including mental and emotional health. The issue here is that in one case, you're outraged, and the other case, you're sympathetic or even apathetic. And again, you are the problem. If you think that the Minneapolis police violated a reporter's First Amendment rights and arresting him was coincidental, even as they left all the white reporters unharassed and unquestioned to do the exact same job, then you are the problem. If you're adopting an attitude of, well, I'm fine if they protest, but this destruction is unacceptable, then I suspect that the protesters would likely be in agreement. What ideas do you have for efforts that will catalyze change that you are willing to do as a white person? There have been innumerable peaceful protests against racism, white supremacy, white violence for years, decades. There has been little change for the better. If anything, these issues have gotten worse and the cost of human life has gotten higher. And if you don't remember those other moments and aren't interested in participating in new ways to address these injustices, but you still feel the need to share your various objections to this moment and others like it, then you are the problem.